morning, everyone. It is 5:38 in the a.m. I hope everyone is doing okay. I have no expectation of anybody being up this early in the morning to see this broadcast, so I'm probably going to go through it pretty quickly, or at the very least, I am going to try to go through it relatively quickly. Green New Deal. So, take a look at this. I know in these videos I always say, take a look at this. There's something interesting with it that I at the very least think is interesting. Or, let's say a historic connection to the point that I want to make. This is John F. Kennedy. This is John F. Kennedy giving the going to the moon speech. Take a listen to this. I love the speech.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
God, I love that speech. Fucking love that speech. I can listen to the speech like 1,000 times, and I'd be excited every time I listen to the speech. We choose to go to the moon. He said this, that, and the other, because this is the goal that we're willing to accept. We choose not to postpone it. This is the one to which we would test our abilities. I love that speech. Now, in the reality of things, John F. Kennedy was going to the moon for geopolitical reasons. He wanted to get there over the Soviet Union. Even within this speech, you could hear him talking about freedom and justice and all this other stuff. Well, freedom for us, for our domination of sorts. But I couldn't imagine being a kid listening to this. We're going to put this hairless ape standing there waving his fists. We're going to put a human being in a little container and we're going to blow him into the sky. And he's going to set foot on another planet, another celestial body. He's going to look back at the planet of origin. God, this is so epic. Like, love this speech. Big things, big fucking things. We don't do big things anymore. It's like, think back to the last time we've done something big in a political sense, something that organized the perspective of the larger community. Eyes being accrued upon this thing and this kind of, this pride associated with it. We don't do those anymore. You can say Obamacare, but, that's a right-wing healthcare plan that started to fall apart. I don't consider that necessarily to be a big thing. The Green New Deal is a big thing. I would even call it a domestic moonshot in regards to the goals that it's trying to accomplish. Now, I say that to say this. I've for the last few days, I've been reading, I read the bill itself, and I was reading opinions on the bill. Jonathan Chait had a particularly stinging criticism of the bill, and if I'm being honest, he's right in his criticism, but he's also wrong from the standpoint of the larger point. And I would even say from a larger perspective. I would give them this. The bill it's a green gold rush. It's a way out for the capitalistic system. That's the first point. Where it's almost like I always say capitalism is water in dirt. It just kind of finds its way through. The productive forces of the society now at this point are going to be used to fix the issues that were created by private enterprise. Dig a hole and then refill the hole. But that is true. I mean, that's no puppeteer necessarily making that work. It's just people trying to find ways of getting other people jobs. That's the prism through which we function in this way. That's not necessarily good or bad. That just kind of is. It's what we call an effect thing. As for the other part, it's amorphous. And so it's open to interpretation of the person who's implementing. Meaning, if you got someone in and if you got a Congress that was able to implement the objectives of this plan, it would be based on their own interpretation. Meaning somebody like Kamala Harris could have a particular point of view of it versus Sanders could have a particular point of view of it. And one may be more of a corporate giveaway. The other one may be more government agencies involved in the process more. Like, it just depends on the individual that's just implementing it. It's amorphous. They made it that way for a reason. They wanted more broad-based support. And for the last point, the bill... But I don't think that matters. And this is the last point, technocratic stuff. Meaning details. It doesn't go into details on how to implement certain policies that are going to be somewhat of a revamping of policy from federal and state to localities. Like when you're talking about like carbon production, is, you know, how do you do it? The bill doesn't necessarily say how you do it. It just says that these are going to be the objectives that are taking place. Fair enough. That's true. But so what? There's something to be said about a broader goal. Now, I would make the point that I don't necessarily think that all of the items that are in it necessarily need to be in it. Many of the things that are in it don't seem to pertain to climate, even though I can kind of see why they may be in the bill in the first place. So like Medicare for All has nothing to do with green energy. Just saying. Those things are in the bill. This comes across as almost a platform or almost like a lefty manifesto as opposed to a piece of legislation. That can be difficult politically to navigate because each one of these things are in and of themselves political fights. Let's say you're going to have a federal jobs guarantee is in and of itself a political fight. That's a thing into itself. I can see why you attach it to a bill like this because if you're talking about a major revamping of America, from rooter to tutor, you know, so from California to New York, then you're talking about a massive undertaking, which means that you're going to need a massive labor pool in order to pull that off. And needing a massive labor pool, given a federal jobs guarantee, makes perfect sense since you're going to have a job to give. With the criticisms, so what? I don't care. There's something to be said about an overarching goal and the things that you want to accomplish. And there is something to be said, and even commendable, to say that put us in office, this is what we do. This is what we believe. From the beginning to the end, this is our platform. This is what we believe. Put us in office and this is what we'll do. They're not hiding from it anything else. This is what we do. This is what we believe in. There will be some people who appropriate that particular message and then do something else completely different. But there will be true believers, and those true believers will have to be evaluated as they are. There's something to be said about setting an overarching goal and objectives, doing a big thing. Having people knowing that you're doing a big thing, that these things are taking place where you're completely revamping American infrastructure. Like, just to give you an idea on what's in this. This is a massive undertaking. You're talking about an undertaking that's going to look something like a World War II. Where you are using the productive forces within the country itself to try to deal with an issue of climate change, while simultaneously also essentially getting the other policy objectives that you want to accomplish, like Medicare for All and, if I'm not mistaken, education benefits. But let's see, take a look at this. I just want to go through some of the items that are in it. Renewable energy, smart grid, energy efficiency, transportation, low-tech solutions, cows and climate, guaranteed job, leave, vacation, and retirement, strengthening labor laws. And I'll just read some of these. But I guess my point is, this is a massive undertaking that will require massive materials and men in order to make this work. Meaning that they're under the guise of climate change, they're essentially continuing the Ponzi scheme of the capitalistic system. It's giving it a way out. The prism, like I said, is jobs. And so from the standpoint of human beings, they say, oh, we can get jobs out of this. It's a propagation of the system. It's a saving of capitalism in kind of an FDR way, but put through the lens of somewhat of a lefty. Part of the problem, though, is it's a grab bag. It's so many things. It's a mismatch. Renewable energy, meeting 100% of the power demands in the United States through clean, renewable energy and zero energy sources, emission energy sources. Smart grid, building and upgrading an energy efficient, distributed and smart power grids, and working to ensure affordable access to electricity. Energy efficiency, upgrading all existing buildings in the United States and building new buildings to achieve maximum energy efficiency, water efficiency, safety, affordability, comfort, and durability, including through electrification. Transportation, overhauling transportation systems in the United States to eliminate pollution and greenhouse gas emissions from the transportation sector as much as technologically feasible, including through investment, zero emission vehicle infrastructure, and manufacturing clean, affordable, and accessible public transportation, high-speed rail. That one is important. If you were in a state or city that had amazing high-speed rail, you would probably use your cars less. If you grew up that way, you would probably maybe not even have a car at all. This is somewhat of a positive thing in the sense that you cut down on the number of people who are using cars. You zero out emissions by zero out the fact that person is not using a car. If that was something that was across the United States, you can cut down on the number of cars year by year by year just by people who grew up and not using them. You know, if you're a kid, like, I guess my point is the behaviors that you take on as kids, for the most part, excel to when you're an adult. If you grew up as a kid, you don't necessarily as a kid. As a kid, you wanted to go from point A to point B. If there was public transportation, use public transportation. I would imagine if you grow up, you don't necessarily grow up and get a car. You grow up and continue to use the public transportation. Let's keep going. Low-tech solutions, removing greenhouse gases from the atmosphere and reducing pollution, including by restoring natural ecosystems through proven low-tech solutions that increase soil carbon storage, such as preservation and afforestation. Cows and climate, work in collaboration with farmers and ranchers in the United States to eliminate pollution and greenhouse gas emissions from the agricultural sector as much as technologically feasible. If I'm not mistaken, there was a study that feeding cows, corn? Or feeding them something cut down on the emissions by like 90%. Like, you know, there be solutions. Guaranteed job, leave, vacation, and retirement. Guaranteeing a job with a family sustainable wage, adequate family and medical leave, paid vacation, retirement, security to all people in the United States. Labor law strengthening and enforcing labor laws, workplace health and safety, anti-discrimination, and wage hour labor standards across employers, industries, and sectors. Public ownership, providing and leveraging in a way that ensures the public receives appropriate ownership stakes and returns on investment. Yes, I love that one. Adequate capital, including through community grants, public banks, and other public financing. Technical expertise, supporting policies, and other forms of assistance to communities, organizations, federal, state, and local government agencies, and businesses working on the Green New Deal mobilization. That part, unless, I don't know what that means. Meaning, is that just dumping money into the private sector? Again, that depends on the person who's implementing. Providing higher education, providing resources, training, and high quality education, including higher education to all people in the United States with a focus on frontline and vulnerable communities. So those communities may be full and equal participants in the Green New Deal mobilization. During New Deal, African Americans were left out. Trade unions, strengthening and protecting the right for all workers to organize, unionize, and collectively bargain free of coercion, intimidation, and harassment. She should include worker co-ops in that, but okay. Trade deals, enacting and enforcing trade rules, procurement standards, and border adjustments with strong labor and environmental protections. Indigenous people, healthcare, housing, security, clean air, water, healthy, and food, and nature. It's a lot. Yes, it's a mouthful. Like I said, it's a lefty wish list. I see nothing wrong at all with setting an objective, even if you can't necessarily meet that particular objective. This is what we are. This is what we are going to accomplish, or this is very least what we're going to try to accomplish. And like I said, each one of these things are thickets in and of themselves, and they may not be able to accomplish it all, but you try. You let people know that this is what you are. Yes, we're going to revamp the entire face of the American population. And that's what we're going to accomplish. And we need to do that for, environmental reasons. You can use environment as a reason, yes. But ultimately, what they're talking about is just an expansion of the capitalistic enterprise. In this kind of Ponzi scheme way, but in a way that tries to give people decent paying jobs. Because after all, in our system, jobs is the thing. I see nothing wrong with setting a goal. I mean, people were digging her for not necessarily dealing with the details of it. So fair enough. But I see nothing wrong at all with saying this is what we're going to try to achieve. We may fall short of glory, but at the very least, this is what we are and this is what we're going to accomplish. Like I said, you can dinger on the politics of it. It becomes a little dicey from a political space of trying to defend all this stuff. But you got to start somewhere. Wins beget wins. It's not going to be perfect. In fact of the matter is, you've given a sentence of 10 years and we're still debating and quibbling on what to do. At the very least, it's an attempt at something. It can be changed. It can be tweaked. As more information is made available, they can change it. They can alter it. It's not necessarily an impenetrable document. The document can be updated. But there's something to be said for setting a goal, setting an agenda, setting an objective, letting the public know what that objective is, and work towards it. And by the way, there is a positive here. Imagine a situation where you have government workers who are going out greenerying, that's not the word, but you can know what I'm getting at, the entire country. And those people knowing that they're working in the betterment of the country, knowing that they're working in the betterment of the environment, when you engage with them, you know that those people are doing that particular task. I think there's something to be said about accruing people to a particular position and having them working in a common purpose. I think there's something to be said about it. And yeah, I know that people are working in those because they need a job, but there's something to be said about a job where the person knows that there's a certain degree of I am doing something good for a larger reason, if that makes sense. So, just saying, I like it. It's imperfect. Yes. Infinitely naive. Yes. She doesn't deal with the technocratic details. Yes. All of that's true. By the same token, it's a start. So that's what I'm going to go with. Wesley Walker, you're attending No to NATO, Yes to Peace Festival in DC in April. I didn't know it was a No to NATO, Yes to Peace Festival. But maybe. I've been thinking about attending more conferences. Like, for the most part, this is what I do all the time. I sit here and do news. And even when I'm not here doing news, I'm looking at news that I want to do. It's like a hamster on a wheel. So the idea of going to other places, I haven't thought too much about it. But I've started to think more about it because I started realizing that being a hamster on a wheel is not necessarily the goal. And going to those festivals to some degree is also part of the reason why I do the show. Like, all of those things is like, I guess my point is, going to festivals. Those are things that I'm going to start doing. Yeah. If you could afford a car, you would buy a car. Public transit still costs riders money. That's not true. I mean, like, if you were living in New York, if you could afford a car, you could get a car, but getting around New York is a hell of a lot easier using public transport like the subways as opposed to driving. And I'm saying that as somebody who's been in New York multiple times and even trying to roam around in it. The only time I've ever hated being in New York was when I had to drive. Same thing is true in other countries, be it Warsaw or I don't remember if London was that way, but France definitely. When people have the option of public transport and they grew up in a society with public transport, something that was available and accessible to them, they use it. They use it. It's like, come on. All right, I'm going to end this because, like I said, it's early and I have no expectation of people being here, and I didn't want it to be too long. But I wanted to add my voice in on the Green New Deal thing, and I guess my main point is it's audacious, wildly impractical, but that's not enough reason to not set that as an objective and try to hit that objective. It can change, it can be tweaked, it can be altered. All of those things are absolutely true. But there's something to be said about setting a big objective, a domestic moonshot. I like it. I like it. Politically difficult, but I like it nonetheless. Thanks all.